Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are all having a great weekend. I hope you finished off the month of May strong, and if you didn't, I hope you were able to learn a lot of things. To kind of summarize how we did over at my home server, 8x Trades, the link is below. We had a total of 50 alerts, and out of all 50, we had 6 losses. And this last week, we were able to net over just around $130,000. Is that not crazy? It's just been an insane, euphoric market. And as they say, what can go high can go higher. What can go low can go lower. And so right now, we're just taking advantage of the momentum that is present. And until the market shows that it wants to slow down, you just keep pressing the gas, right? Eventually, there's going to be some U turns and we're going to have to take them. But at the current moment, everything is just showing so much strength. And so, one of the things that we want to cover today is the current names that are within the sectors of that strength but might have not started moving yet or are showing really good indications of potential reversals. Remember, if you want to receive my watch list a day in advance, so you can use it as a form of homework to prep and create your own analysis before my videos get released, you can compare your results with mine to see how you did. Make sure you give me a follow on X at AB Trades. I also released a checklist guide. It's been out for quite some time now. It is no longer pinned in my X, but you could still find it within the highlights region. And again, this checklist guide is what I use every single time I'm trying to create a watch list. I want to pick the things that have a good chunk of the confluences to kind of help me assess which ones I want to pick over the other, right? None of this is financial advice. This is just me sharing how I'm approaching the market, and hopefully it gives you a few ideas to add to your own. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, a name I do want to talk about is ACN. Um, I believe it's within the software cloud names, and that's going to be a bit of an underlying theme within this week's watch list. We had a lot of really great names within the IGV and software realm kind of trade out really aggressively these last few days, especially into this month end rebalance. There was a lot of really good breakouts within the bases that they built, and those breakouts were confirmed with some really nice volume pushes, right? That's one thing we want to make sure, especially coming off of those bottom bases. So when I'm looking at ACN, we have a really good like weekly type LRLR, right? If I go into the weekly, we have this. And since this weekly started its drawdown back in February, every single green week has been sold off up until this point, where we now actually had a proper 2-up continuation after an aggressive monthly sweep that came back into the range, consolidated for about a week, and now giving you that initial instance of price delivery in the opposing way. So it acts as a really nice, I guess you can call it sort of PMG LRLR type. And what I really like about this is that this last up candle before the aggressive new lows, right into that monthly broadening, lines up with that daily gap. So my thought process here is we got the daily surge or the daily volume that we were looking for after kind of solidifying a base, right? And I just want to cover a few things. You broke down into new broadening lows with displacement and a gap. You redirected this overall this overall manipulation leg with a gap and displacement that then held true. So like if I drag this down here, right, where all this existed, look at how price responded to that. And now we reclaimed a really nice range. We had a little lower time frame power of 3 that then found a little bit more of consolidation. And if I go into the 4-hour, remember I talk about inverse head and shoulders at the bottom of the broadening because it could be where price develops into a new curve, right? And by curve, if this was in a sell curve, meaning you were only taking out your sell side, and now you actually got some character change within the internal and the external trend, we are now looking for those buy stops. And one thing that I like to talk about is when you're looking for these early indications of your MMBM or your cell model, whenever you're initially doing it, is do you have an inverse head and shoulder at the bottom or do you have an inverse head and shoulder at the top? And it's a really great way to identify that because now we have a really good reference point here, right? You have a really good displacement on your lower time frame against the previous week high. And now we have a really good reference point on a day that is starting to peak up. So if you don't get any immediate continuation, I would like to see some kind of rebalance to kind of confirm Friday's candle against that previous week high and then run up. And you can even draw out the manipulation leg from here, this last up candle. Excuse me. And what I like about where the negative 1.5 and negative 2 exist is that they coexist with the final pivot into this gap here, right? So if this does manage to find a breakout and this displacement candle holds, and we ideally don't revisit sub 175, I would like to see a reclaim of about 189.30, maybe gets a retest later, and then gives you a nice LRLR type move into that new structural trend. So you have your first set of consolidation, second set, and eventually the third set, which is what I would kind of like to see play out up into that 219, 230 zone. You do have earnings coming up within middle of June, so we'll see how this does. But for the most part, I would not be surprised to see some kind of ER run up with how it's developing. All eyes on that 189.32. Next up on the list is SMR. And this one's pretty straightforward. I kind of just like how, excuse me, you kind of just sold off. Then you had a really nice delivery against the bottom of that broadening. And you pretty much created a new structural evidence of buyers. Because you kind of here, and then you do this. Right? And what I like about this manipulation sweep is it is against a really nice gap from those broadening lows paired up with your first potential instance of a higher low. So if this higher low is going to work out against this dealing range here, if this becomes your higher low, the next move should give you up into at minimum of like 14.815 zone. Remember, you can have internals within the externals. And if this is going to be that solidified dealing range that does establish your higher low, you could still get this within the external leg. So right now we kind of came into some little overhead resistance. If there is going to be any evaluation further of this, I mean, as long as we stay above 10, in my opinion, you could still get another sweep and come back up. Then what all that would do is just give you a third driver. All that matters is if you do sweep, do you come back into the range aggressively? Because then you probably get that. But for the most part, I would like to see at least 1070 get defended and or a daily close above like 13.3 to solidify a move into at minimum 14.7 and maybe even as high as 15 and so on and so forth. But what I really like about this is that this could be the first indication of your higher low. And what I like about that higher low too is that you pair it with consolidation, manipulation, distribution, right? So we are in the potential distribution phase here. If we can get that follow through, I would target monthly highs and so on and so forth. Same thing with OKLO. Just SMR has a little bit better development, but this is kind of my thesis within OKLO. Very similar to SMR. Don't want to spend too much time on this. Basically, we got the dip into the discount. Now we're looking for an aggressive recovery and a potential distribution phase into like 88 and maybe even as high as 95. One that I really like is Monday.com, MNDY. And what I want to show you guys is when we were first talking about team, we addressed this within the 8x trade group, and we addressed how like you're building a really nice base above a monthly high paired with a gap and where the structure changed, right? So now you have MSS here. So many points of confluence where price was basing really nicely and you got the delivery. Price will trade out the same way it trades in. If we traded down up, consolidate, you expand down up, right? Same with GTLB. Look at how you had those really nice solidified bases, really nice reclaims, and then the expansion. So when I go back to MNDY, I think this one is a laggard to some of these software and IGV names. And I really like how you got a really nice consolidation base here with a gap up and almost a full body close above your previous week high and near high of day on the daily. So if we can continue to develop above 72, I would really like this to make a move in a 95 because that 95 also coexists with an open gap. So this one would be a really nice watch relative to a lot of the other software names that are pushing, right? Really pretty weekly. And once again, at the bottom of the broadening, you have a potential inverse head and shoulder. And this could actually be the first set of consolidation before the next expansion higher. So again, some of these software names still have early signs of your MMBM, of your buy side curve, and they haven't fully broken out yet. So like I'm looking to see if I can find that next set of names to continue running. Next up on the list is Owl, Blue Owl Capital. This one I believe is within the finance sector, but it's really hard to ignore this kind of structure. Look at how you break down, you consolidate, distribute, and then aggressively reclaim. Create your first instance of a higher low into a higher high, now another higher low, and you got the really nice delivery out of that. So all that's next is the next higher high, right? And if I go back and show you what you did here to here, look at that. Look how clean this structure changes, right? You have your first instance of like your MSS, market structure shift, lows, gap up displacement. You come back to rebalance. Because of how aggressively price moved, we know that those orders are going to be supportive of how they were created. And now the same thing here. Now you have really good establishment of your auction. Buyers are in control here. And I would honestly like it if they give you that continuation. Overall, this is just a really pretty structural chart. And I like how price respected the confluence of the open gap with a rebalance against the overall like MSS. And I like that new monthly highs and weekly highs were made as well. Now you're kind of just respecting the integrity of the overall external leg. And again, swinging low to swing high, swing low to swing high, swing low. All that's next is your other swing high. And similarly, as you guys seen in the rest of these other names, is like when I map out my standard deviations, if the -2, -1.5 up into -2.5, if it lands with, if it exists or coexists with a important external portion of liquidity, like if I extend this out, look at that. Look at where this -1, -2.5, it exists with an open gap. Gaps can become magnets to price. And depending on how they were created, price is probably going to respect that. So I would really like to see if we can get that next expansion of this current structural uptrend into that 11 and 12 area. Overall looks really good. I would like to see it build out a little more. Again, as long as it stays above, in my opinion, 9.4, I think it's really, really good. Another name within like the finance, and I believe they have something to do with data centers as well, is FRMI. And if we go back and look at Owl, look at Owl's uptrend, look at FRMI. Very, very similar. Exhaustion lows, new higher highs, structural shift against a reclaimed gap, came back to restructure, and now you have a clean higher low to give you the next expansion. So if this is going to work out, right, so you have this. I would like to see delivery of price back through 7.7 and up into 8.5 and onwards. You have a really clean weekly. All you really need to do now is just flip. If you can get an aggressive reclaim of 7.64, it changes the entire structure and narrative of this. Because then you have this on the weekly, guys. You have this. that could get you an even more aggressive run. All that comes down to is like how strong, if price can you deliver through that 7.64? Because if it does, it changes everything. It changes everything. Because right now order flow is down, right? You're still in a aggressive downtrend. But if you can get just this little reclaim and then go for a retest, you can get a very explosive move into like maybe late summer or early Q3. So definitely keep this on watch. There's been some pretty good positioning for August and September as well. All it comes down to is how aggressive can you get above 7.64. Next up on the list is MSTR, and this is derived off the weekly, and it's just something I want to share with you guys because I like how structure is developing here, and there's supportive flow to get you there. So let's look at the 2-day. So from this manipulation leg, which is also where the deviations are derived from this little deviation, because this is where you get a manipulation leg against this low, and then you aggressively redeliver into a new form of higher highs, I guess, if you want to take it. But when you're on the weekly, you have this little structure here. So you come here, and then you run up. So from this dealing range, this swing low to swing high, you are now at a really clean weekly and 2-day and up optimal trade entry. You came back to rebalance that aggressive candle that was first established in April. And now you have a really nice ref strat against a filled gap and a higher time frame breaker within your weekly discount of a rebalance on multiple time frames. And so if this works, I would really like to see this push up in like 174 and maybe even higher if that weekly delivery is strong enough. But right now, I think there's good evidence to support a pop up into at least 170, 175 within next week. Next up on the list is Honeywell. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I think this heads to all-time high and higher. And with a specific sector, the robotics sector being a really, really hot theme right now, and a lot of people wanting it, some people actually forget that Honeywell is also in some form of robotics. And I really like how this weekly created now a really nice imbalance, a volume imbalance here relative to the weekly inversion it created, right? You have overlapping inefficiencies coming off of a really nice higher time frame rebalance that respects your overall higher low and integrity of your uptrend. And you created some really nice LRLR that you are now breaking out of. And with this little retest of your previous week high that now created a volume bounce, now you have so much more to support a move higher. And I really like how that -2 lines up with the potential targets of this actual discount leg, right? If I go in and map my fibs, look at where it lines up, right? The -2 and -2.5 coexist with the extensions of our actual discount. So I really like this trade a lot. I think there's just so much to like here, and a lot of people aren't actually talking about it. So personally, I would just like to see continuation. You can even start to consolidate above like 225, 224, give or take. But I do think this move is getting ready to prep this up into an explosive move into that 254, 266 region. One of my favorite charts, by the way. Another one of my favorite charts that didn't end the week so cleanly, but it's okay because there's enough time. I really like Vistra Corp, and I've talked about this so much now, like within the last 2-3 weeks. We kind of discussed the importance of this weekly redelivery, and it kind of mapped out like almost perfectly to a T, right? We wanted sub 135. We went outside weak now with a slight gap, and we have a lot of relative equal highs into this 168, 170 zone. When I look at the daily, I actually like the fact that as we pushed up here, you didn't immediate reject like you did here, here, and then here. Rather, alternatively now, we're actually building in a very supportive manner relative to where this used to break down. So what I would like to see is maybe kind of flag out a little bit to then sweep and respect the overall leg of this weekly, because this is a weekly higher low. If this is a weekly higher low, what comes next, right? Higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Is the market finally assigning value to these power infrastructure plays? Because think about it, if the demand for AI is so big, what powers it? So VST, I think, is a really good trade for the remainder of summer and so forth, right? Just based off this weekly and how you went outside week with a gap. Question is like, now can you flag within the daily to then get continuation up higher? And who knows? Maybe this does go from a higher low to a higher high, and that would put you up in like 212, 227 plus. And it's more than capable. Just, I mean, going back to what happened over here, like this had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 plus weeks worth of continuation on the week. Same thing happened over here, right? Once it's getting ready to break out, you get at least a month to 2 months worth of uptrend cycles. So we just have to see how this weekly plays out. It's not the greatest week. So what I would really like to see is the daily continue to respect the previous month lows. So I don't really want this to go anything under like 145. Because what you could also do is something like this within the internal leg. Right? You could kind of build it out and then run as well. So something to keep an eye on. Next up on the list, and it's probably one of my most favorite charts, and I'm just going to show you one thing and you're going to be like, what? And that's pretty much all I'm going to say. Check this out. I need to do it like that. Look at this. Oh, it's like this. Look at this, guys. This is all you really need to see. And I'm overlapping it with the candles. Path has one of the sexiest Wyckoff volume anomaly patterns I've ever seen. Nice volume break, consolidation into your volume accumulation cycles. Volume started to pour back in, and now I do believe you're within your expansion phase. So I think as long as we can stay above like 10, I'm looking for a breakout into 13, 14, and maybe even 15. What I really like is that the negative 1.5 again lines up with a higher time frame gap. And I think this is very, very applicable to this current structure. Super clean Wyckoff patterns, really nice volume anomalies. You're getting really nice BF inversions against major time frame lows and redelivery of price into important areas. Right, this is one of the first daily closes that actually successfully stays above 11. Look at all these other instances since like March. Failed up until just recently. And you got a really nice aggressive daily. It looked like it had gapped down and put you back in the range. So like I'm expecting a little bit more of build up above 10, but I think now you're getting ready for that next distribution leg, and you have the volume to showcase for that. I really think you can get a run into 14. And last but not least is CLS Celestica. I think this is a really pretty chart. I mean, look at the weekly. You had weekly consolidation paired with manipulation that then gave you distribution. So you had a really nice AMD here. And what I like about this distribution is that it gave you really aggressive candles against previous all-time highs. And when we take this dealing range from the manipulation low into the expansion high, you actually came and got a perfect discount trade relative to where sellers were once active. And when I go into like the 2-day or 3-day, just look how pretty this looks. So for me, I think you get something like this that eventually trades up into new higher highs. 440, 470, 500 would be my targets from here, as long as price continues to stay above 300. You are like, we are a little bit late to the party. For the most part, I think there's still a lot of wiggle room left in this. And we have the structural evidence to support it. Weekly rebalance, discount of the leg, golden pocket tapped, monthly high, all-time high breakers, really nice price delivery out of it, right? You have gaps, wicks that kind of sweep some externals and then redeliver into previous week highs. So maybe you get some kind of push up into about 400, reset, and then run. But this is such a pretty chart. I don't see many people talking about it. And I actually don't know what they do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I do believe you also put in a really nice monthly hammer. So it was also a really good monthly rebalance. Really pretty 2-week. And just overall, really pretty higher time frame development. There is some bonus charts, but I don't really want to spend too much time on them, but I'll go over them briefly just to let you know what I'm looking at. And one of them is DFEN. This is a daily aerospace and defense bull 3 times ETF. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because we have really nice breakout on the weekly, really pretty inside day against a rebalanced, or not, I wouldn't even call it rebalance, of overlapping inefficiencies here against a weekly high breaker. And so I think you're going to probably consolidate and get a nice breakout into like 85 plus. And the reason I bring this up is because if this is the ETF, right, names like GD, names like AVAV, all look super, super clean. So keep an eye on those. And another one that's a potential is PSKY. And I like the fact that you could potentially develop a really nice 3-driver into a weekly low sweep from a really nice manipulation low to develop your first instance of a higher low into new higher highs. So whether or not you get a 3rd driver or not, I would watch to see how this starts to respond from here. Because if this does get respected, you are going to attack those monthly highs, right? Up into 12, 13, and maybe even as high as 14.6. So I would love to see one more sweep, but if we start to get candle closes above 11, I think this goes for the monthly high as is. Palantir weekly should be on everyone's radar. Very aggressive weekly displacement with room to go into these weekly external LRLR, right? Really nice PMG triggered. Now you have the displacement candle. If you get some kind of reset, I would assume this eventually runs into 170, maybe even higher. A lot of fuss on this, and there's really good flow as well. And I mean, just look at this clean trend here. It's ready, guys. This looks phenomenal. And lastly is Adobe. Just keep an eye on Adobe, as this is one of the software laggers that is creating a really nice base and hasn't fully broken out yet. Same thing for MDB. You had a really nice base with a breakout, and I do believe this is within the second stage of the buy curve that eventually gets you a breakout into 400, 410. And yeah, that concludes my watch list. I try to keep it within the 30-minute threshold. Sometimes I do get carried away. I do apologize for the consistent coughing. But if you enjoy these, leave a like, comment, tell me what your favorite setup for the week is. Make sure you subscribe. And I enjoy doing these videos. And lastly, hopefully we can get this to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I will be doing a very big giveaway if that happens. So yeah, let's get it there, guys. Other than that, I hope you all have a great weekend. See you on Monday for our pre-market prep within 8x trades. And you guys have a blessed Sunday. See ya.